But was there shipbuilding of that kind in 600 BC, the kind where you could put a ship together and take it clear across an ocean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Something very interesting that really caught our attention was that the ship, Philip Beale's ship, actually went around Africa and to America in this 600 BC replica ship.
That's 2009. So when he left, he sailed around Africa.
Right.
So he came around Africa. The winds and the currents, you can see where the winds and currents were pushing him within 600 miles of Miami. And you know, it's interesting. When the Book of Mormon was written, one of the main naysayers of the book was, you know, Joseph Smith wrote this book. He's talking about his family that came out of Jerusalem at 600 BC. Nobody sailed the oceans at 600 BC. You know, Columbus discovered America in 1492. You're talking 1600 years before Columbus. No, that did not happen. That did not happen. Right. And here you have a 600 BC replica that has sailed 30,000 nautical miles, sailed across the Atlantic Ocean into Miami.
So as we were walking and around at the shipyard, looking at the damage and looking at Phoenicia, I was impressed to walk around the front part of the ship. And I look down and I see there on the ground her horse head. They have a horse head on the ship, on the front of the ship. And I looked down at it and it just really got to me. I mean, the spirit was strong. I felt like she was speaking to me. As I was looking at her and looking down at her, I got down on the ground and I saw like a tear. It looked like a tear, I'm telling you, coming down out of her eye.
And she still has that. It's a piece. It's sap.
It's sap. I looked down at her, I touched her, and she spoke to me. She said, "I'm alive."
Okay, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the greatest show on earth, which is the last dispensation, and we're living in it. Whether you like it or not, you're here. Yes. And this is it. We are in the sixth seal, I would say. That's my own interpretation of things. What, you guys believe that too? Let me say something real quick so I stop interrupting you guys and let you take over. But I did a video a few minutes ago. I'm going to have a guy on the program that was on a week ago, that Rob Urey, that talked about the hinge point. I don't know if you guys watch that.
Yep.
Well, he and I were talking the other day, actually yesterday, which inspired me to put out the video that I did. In the video, the whole narrative was, I believe that our presidency was usurped in 2020. I believe that it was stolen. Okay. But look how God loves our country still. See, it's not the founding fathers. It's not the Constitution that's at fault. It's the people that run it, right? The swampity swamps, right? They're the one, I say it real fast so I don't get in trouble. The swampers, right?
The secret combinations and the Gadianton robbers.
Right. Do you want shrimp or Chinese style? Right. In your combination. But the thing is that he loves this country, he watches over it, and the same people that usurped, is that the right word? Trump, look what happened to them. They started going cuckoo.
Yeah.
Biden started going senile. Kamala too. And they couldn't run things right. They didn't know what to say. God did not give them words and thoughts. All they could do is eat ice cream cones and laugh. That's it. Laugh and eat ice cream. Laugh and eat ice cream.
Exactly. And I still think we're a God-fearing country. You know,
yes.
A lot of people say, you know, the wickedness on the earth is that of Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm thinking, you know, how many temples we have worldwide, and how many good people do you know? How many good people do we know? We live out in the country here in Lake City, and we go to the rodeo, and they open the rodeo up with a national anthem and a prayer.
Yeah,
that's right.
You know, and so
There's a lot of God-fearing people out there and a lot of Christians.
Still in this country, yes.
And they have the faith and they believe, and that led him to put another presidency in there for Trump.
And the one that did it the right way. He, whether you believe God wants Trump there or he's just allowing Trump to be there, regardless, I believe he's put there. I don't fanboy over him and I don't worship him, but I think he's a good guy. I really do. And I think he was qualified for the job, like Cyrus that helped the Jews with the first temple. But the reason Biden and Kamala didn't, and I'll get off this subject, I just wanted to open up with this because I did a video on it today, is that they were eventually what happened to Biden in the end? He was usurped.
Yeah.
You see? He was usurped by his own vice president and the swamp that put him there. They put him there and then they usurped him themselves. They're wicked. They're crooked. Anyway.
Exactly. In the scriptures, it talks about those types of people who lay traps for the righteous and how they're traps that they lay for the righteous and snare them in them.
Yes. Yes, exactly. All right. So let me welcome and introduce this beautiful, beautiful couple that I met at the Firm Conference back in October.
October.
Right? Yes. And I said, what in the heck are they doing over there? And I bought some sage, and my cat's name is Sage. She's a Russian blue. Her name is Sage, and I've been burning sage, and I love it.
Yeah.
And I met you guys, and I didn't, doggone it, I forgot how to say your name again. It's
LaFontaine.
It's LaFontaine. I always thought I want to say something different.
It's French.
Yes.
LaFontaine.
Okay. It's French Canadian?
French Canadian, yes.
Okay. And
what are you?
And you are
I am part of Chippewa from the Turtle Mountain band of Chippewas out of North Dakota. And my mother, she's a full-blooded Swede.
I was going to say, I know you have the Native American face, from a man face. You have that. There is no faking that, and you are that.
I am that.
And then your beautiful wife, who is it Red Ant?
Right.
I remember.
I'll introduce myself as a Navajo would do if she were to publicly introduce it. So I go by, let me start Navajo then. She Betty Red Ant LaFontaine Yinchka is Ozadet Nasha Bashi in Nishle Ashin him Bashis Chin Akia Ani Dashache Twitty Dashanale without a dinner Asa Nishle. So I'm from the Red Clay Bottom clan, which is my mom's clan, born for the Salt clan, which is my father's clan. Towering House people are my grandfathers, and Bitter Water people are my grandmothers. And this is how I am a Navajo woman.
Now, what is Bitter Water people?
We go by a clanship.
Okay.
So our clanship used to be like a couple hundred or more clans, but now we've downgraded from that to, I'm not sure how many there are now, but it kind of describes like Bitter Water, meaning that area in the Bitter Water area of the land is where the people are from. The Towering House people are one of the first clans that started with the Navajo people was the Towering House people. And I'm directly connected with them. So it's a matriarchal society in the Navajo way, where the matriarchs are the ones that lead the families, and we're born for the Salt clan. I'm born for the Salt clan, which is my father's clan.
Now, are most of the Navajos matriarchal societies?
Yes, we are. Actually, yes.
Interesting.
And I think it's like that within a lot of the native tribes in North America, but don't quote me on that, but I think it's mostly like that now. So
Wow.
Yes.
I could sit here and probably do a whole other program on that, but this is I love it. I love it. And Chippewa, uh,
Yeah.
are they patriarchal?
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. It's just neat how the different societies have their own unique things, and then you wonder they didn't all get along either, you know,
Nope.
and some of them did. And but anyway, we're not here to talk about all that, which is fascinating. But what are we here to talk about?
We're here to talk about the Phoenicia.
A
What is
600.
that? And go ahead. And
It's a
let you
600
take it
BC.
away.
Go ahead. It's a
No.
600 BC replica ship that we, as Heartland Research Group, acquired and bought and purchased in 2020, I believe. Was it
Yeah.
20?
Wow.
There she is.
They were a city state in the Mediterranean area. You know, they didn't really have a capital, didn't really have a land and a parliament and stuff. They were a city state, so they would. I like to say that they conquered by commerce. They would come into a port area and say, "Hey, would you like to join our group? And you guys sell ivory, and we can ship the ivory over to Egypt." They like Egypt, you know, and then of course, you know, the cedars of Lebanon. They go all over. So they just did commerce all within the Mediterranean area. They eventually, I guess, Carthage, Tunisia was maybe their main port and main area, which at the end of their lifespan was destroyed by Rome. Hannibal, the general, he's the same general that attacked Rome and took the elephants up over the Alps and came down into Rome and just about conquered Rome with that military strategy. But eventually Rome destroyed Phoenicia, or the Phoenicians, or the empire, and they did a good job of it. They pretty much wiped them out of history.
Yeah, and you don't hear much about them except for them being parts of stories and things like
Yep.
that. And I knew who they were. I just wanted you to ask you that for my audience,
Yeah.
just so I don't look dumb. I have to tell everybody I knew who they were.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because they look kind of like the ships back then. They am I right or wrong? They weren't for well, I don't know. Historians like to say we didn't travel around the world a lot, but what do you say about that? And that kind of
Well,
segues into what you're saying.
Probably one of the first great mariners was Noah. I mean, he not long after the Garden of Eden and Adam and everybody, the Sea of Enoch being taken up, you know, the people got wicked, and Noah, he had to build a ship. So that was like probably the first big one that we know about. But God has always led his people away to the farthest parts of the world by ships, by water. I mean, the Jaredites, the Nephites, the Lamanites, or the Nephites, and the Mulekites, of course. So
Right.
all by water, and that's just probably a very, very, very small percentage of the amount of people who were led away by water.
Interesting. So, we are going to further expound and examine this this vessel. Where do we go from here? Because I want to shut up and just let you present. You guys to present.
Well, this is going to probably be a little bit different than most of your podcasts because Betty and I aren't scriptorians, so we're not going to sit here and dissect
I'm really not either.
Genesis 15:2 and spend an hour and a half talking about it.
Okay.
We're part of the Heartland Research Group, which is based out of Montrose, Iowa. John Lefgren is the president of the nonprofit organization. I'm the vice president. Betty is the
Cultural advisor.
Cultural advisor, keeps us straight. We have 5 board members. We're a nonprofit, so that's where our headquarters is in Montrose, which is across from Nauvoo.
Where the ship is, actually. The ship is in Montrose, Iowa right now in a
Oh.
warehouse.
Wow.
We've been, since we acquired it, the project started in 2020, I believe, this summer. This has been this last year is our third year working on the ship. But let's just kind of talk about where it began with this wonderful person here that you see. His name is Captain Philip Bill. He is an Englishman out of
England.
He
was in the Royal Navy. He was an adventurer, an explorer, and ancient sea travel fascinated him. His first ship that he built was the Bor, which is an old Indonesian ship, and sailed it. So that was his first ship that he did. Then the second ship, he read about Herodotus, who wrote about the Phoenicians, King Necho, which is a pharaoh of Egypt, hired the Phoenicians to sail around Africa. This is something that Herodotus wrote over 200 years after it happened. He didn't even know if it was real or not. He was just, relaying history on to everybody else. And that was at 600 BC. That's when King Necho II was the pharaoh in Egypt. And that's when he asked the Phoenicians, sail around Africa, see if you can do it or not. So that's when he first decided, I'm going to do a Phoenician ship. So
here is a ship that was found in Marseille, France. It is in a museum. When they were constructing a building and building a foundation, digging this foundation, they found this wreck buried in the mud. And it's called a Jules Verne 7 is the name. And they called an archaeologist. They took a look at this, the remnant of the ship, and came to the conclusion that it was a 600 BC Phoenician ship.
Wow.
So he said, great, I want to build that because that's when Herodotus said that King Necho II asked the Phoenicians to sail around Africa. It was in 600 BC. So he says, I got a 600 BC wreck, so I'm going to build a 600 BC replica.
Philip Bill did, yes.
So he had it built in Arwad, Syria. If you look real close, you can see the Syrian coast there. This is an island off the coast where they've been building ships for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where they built the ship.
Something very interesting that really caught our attention was that the ship, Philip Bill's ship, actually went around Africa and to America in this 600 BC replica ship. The routes that you've seen that we talked about and that are familiar to the Latter-day Saints are these two travels. And whose travels are those?
So you can see Arwad. That's 2009. It's when he left and he sailed around Africa.
Right.
So he came around Africa. The winds and the currents, you can see where the winds and currents were pushing him within 600 miles of Miami.
Yeah.
And they told him in Miami, come to Miami, we'll restock you and, put you on your way. And he said, no, that's not what our job was. Our job was to sail around Africa. So they turned back in and made it back in the Mediterranean. This ship does not have much of a hull at all. As you can see, it's rounded. What's unique about this ship, it's a hull first construction. This tells you it's very, very ancient, because generally ships are built around the hull and the ribs, and then you take the wood and you bend the outside planks around it. But as you can see, they built the hole first, and then they come back and put in the ribs. So that's how they did it back
So
in
are these
1600.
kind of like warships too? How they used to build them?
I think the majority of the ships were used for
Fishing,
hauling stuff. Yeah.
Traveling.
hauling stuff. Yeah, they almost like the Viking ships too. It's kind of interesting.
His first trip around Africa, his first voyage, which took 2 years, that happened in 2009, and then in 2010 in Beirut. In 2019, they took off out of the Mediterranean Sea, as you can see, and they sailed out of the Mediterranean Sea out.
That's the orange.
Yeah.
Bingo bear.
They've sailed out to the Canary Islands, which is right off the coast of Africa,
Right.
and then right over into San Domingo. The same route Christopher Columbus took, and he did it. Phil Bill only took 1 day longer than Christopher Columbus did, so he sailed right into America, and then from America he sailed up into to the Miami port, and that's where Betty and I met him. We went down and met him in Miami, where the crew came in there.
So this photo here, we wanted to be the natives, the friendly natives, to meet the ship and greet
The
the
friendly.
people.
Hi, we're your neighborhood friendly natives.
Yeah. So it was awesome. I mean, meeting them and the crew. And there's a familiar call when they came into the port, where one of the people on there, she was a young woman. Her name is Shaimi. She was Lebanese, and she made this call, and it goes like this. And I thought, what the heck? That sounds familiar. Native people do that. When she made that call in the native world is called the Lulu.
The Lulu. I'll look it up.
Yeah, it's called the Lulu. And what the Lulu is when you make that call, you're celebrating, you're honoring, you're welcoming. That's the call that she made when they were coming on, into port. And I made the same call back to her.
That's neat.
That's the call. And so that familiar sound really pierced me. I mean, it was like, okay, here I am. We are here, Native people. We're greeting this ship. And we were taught as growing up in our culture that we came from the east direction. Here's a ship that came from the Great Salt, the east direction. And that call that she made really did it. It
resonated with you
very much. I mean, very strongly. And so from then on, I was like, this means something. This ship means something, not just for America receiving the ship, but me as a native, us as a native people, where we were taught that we came from the east, from the rising sun, where the sun rises. And here's a ship that came from that same direction. And so when she made that call, man, I'm telling you, it really touched me, especially because that is something that we celebrate the East. And so after they came, we had a little reception there at a yacht club.
And they did the Lulu there also during the celebration time.
Yeah, we did. We both did it. We exchanged Lulus, Shaimi and I. She was just as surprised that I would do the Lulu back to her.
Right.
Because she says, well, who did that? And then we really connected at the reception when I did the Lulu back to her.
And maybe even her not knowing much about the Native American culture. She was probably surprised that, oh, wow, is this a kindred a person, that goes back in antiquity, maybe where there's some correlation there. That's neat.
Yeah. And after that, after the next day, Mike and I were able to get a van and take them out and do some little sightseeing. We took them out to the Seminole Reservation, the
Miccosukee.
Seminole, Miccosukee Reservation in Florida, South Florida. And they were able to see different things and enjoy a little time and learn about the people here. But they have a great crew, really great crew, great people. And they came from all different areas of the world to be able to sail on this ship and to make history. This is Shimey.
In the middle.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
really. Well, it's kind of you, really.
I
Yeah, that's her
pictured
right
her
there.
looking more like she was wearing a scarf or something, but that's
Yeah, the lady in the white hair is my mom.
that's the Danish side. Was it
The
Danish?
Swedish side.
Swedish side. And you're in the middle, Red Ant.
I'm right here.
Yes.
She was the nurse or the physician doctor on board. And this is Zavira and Yuri, and they are from Brazil, and they are the film crew. They documented everything, and I can't remember his name, but Dexter, but Dimitri, which is it?
Well, Dimitri's a tall guy.
Yeah, that was Dimitri.
Yeah.
And then the darker guy in the back by Vera, I believe he was with Philip on the first expedition of the first ship that he did. And he was on this voyage with the Phoenicia.
Yeah. The expedition was called 2,000 Years Before Columbus, or Phoenicians Before Columbus. So that was the name of the expedition that that they came over here on. So they came and they landed 2019, right before COVID. You heard a little bit about COVID, not much. That's when Betty and I went down there, and we were down there, and so his crew was getting ready to leave and go back. They were going back home, to where they lived. They all lived in different countries, so pretty much only Philip was here. So I stuck around with him. So he was planning on taking the boat up to Fort Lauderdale to put it in a stall there, so a slip. So he had to go back up to Fort Lauderdale. So I volunteered to come and help him. And that's me and Philip there on the Phoenicia off the coast of Florida, sailing from Miami to Fort Lauderdale.
Wow.
And I had a friend of mine, Steve Ross, came up from Jacksonville. And that's where she sat. And then COVID hit. Nobody, it was weird, it was like, wow. Philip went home. And I kept in contact with Philip, went down once in a while to check on the ship. Some major storms were coming, to just make sure that things were tied down and good.
And before COVID hit, he had offers from different places like, I don't know,
just museums
in Europe and things, and pretty good offers to purchase the ship. But after COVID, everything just kind of stopped. All the offers stopped. The interest was there, but they just couldn't.
Yeah.
They couldn't see doing anything with the ship anymore because of COVID.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, the Heartlanders in general, Rod Meldrum, Jonathan Neville, everybody was following this ship, and that was definitely something that was interesting and wanting to purchase it at that time. But at that time, the price was way up there, so that was out of the question for us at that time. But as it sat for 2 years, Philip came back towards the end of the pandemic, or plandemic. Can we say that? Is that okay to say?
Yes, you can say that.
We're learning more and more every day how much of a plan it was, unfortunately.
Or the scamdemic.
There you go. There you go.
That I like that one.
Scamdemic. Yeah.
Yeah. So he came back. He was in quarantine for 2 weeks over in the Bahamas before he got over here. So I met him down there, and he was trying to get the motor started, and he turned the motor over and it just broke the whole starter housing right off the motor. So as soon as that happened, the idea, he was trying to get it started to move it, of course. And he had found out earlier that it actually, the electricity for the sump pump that was in the hull, because it's a wooden ship, it leaks, you know. So she sunk down into the canal, you know, not all the way, but enough to cover the engine that was in the belly of her, you know.
Because of the electricity being out, it was because of Florida at the time. It was during hurricane season.
That could have been part of the issue, or that someone just walked by and unplugged the extension cord, you know.
Either way.
Yeah, so the diesel engine was destroyed. So he had it towed. So at that point in time, you know, his only resolution that he could think of was just do what he did with his first ship, cut her up and send her back. This is a picture of Betty and I at the shipyard. You can see her. She's already been cut in half there, put in containers. This is John Lefgren, our president, the president of Heartland Research Group. There's a close-up picture of, you can see the stuff in the bottom. It was sheets of steel. That's what they used for ballast inside of her. There's another picture, a side view of, they cut it up with a sawzall, and then they stuck it in containers. That's what a container looked like. That's how we got it, in pieces.
So as we were walking and around at the shipyard, looking at the damage and looking at Phoenicia, I was impressed to walk around the front part of the ship, and I looked down and I see there on the ground her horse head. They have a horse head on the ship, on the front of the ship. And I looked down at it, and it just really got to me. I mean, the spirit was strong. I felt like she was speaking to me as I was looking at her and looking down at her. I got down on the ground, and I saw like a tear. It looked like a tear, I'm telling you, coming down out of her eye.
And she still has that. It's a piece. And it's sap.
It's sap. I looked down at her. I touched her, and she spoke to me. She said, "I'm alive.
I'm still alive.
I'm still alive."
Wow.
And I thought, holy cow, this ship has to be somewhere. It has to be seen by people. It has a story, and that story connects with my people, the indigenous people of North America. That story connects with the people in the LDS world. And this ship has a place, and that place is something that we need to preserve. And so we started negotiating with Captain before he had that shipment all cut up, and because the other part of the ship was already shipped, right?
Yeah, he already shipped it back to England where he was.
And so this one, he was having it cut up, and he was going to do the same thing and have it shipped to England.
Yeah, the bow was cut up and shipped to England, which is unusual, which is weird because the prow and the horse head was still here. That should have went with the bow, which went to England. We got the stern, which is the back of the ship, and but they had left the horse head here. One side note here we probably didn't cover in the beginning is Philip Bill is not a member of the church. He's not LDS.
Right.
He doesn't know anything about the LDS at that time. Didn't know anything about the Book of Mormon. Didn't know anything about the Nephites or Mulekites or anybody like that. And here he goes, building a 600 BC Phoenician ship, selling it the route Lehi would have came down around Africa over to America, North America, the Promised Land. And the second trip, the Mulekites, Mulek, young king, they would have came out of the Mediterranean right across.
Right.
So very, very unique.
I find it fascinating the connection that, especially, when Betty and is talking about uh, the two different times that she has, and even you have felt like there's something more, like something's beginning, or something is going to transpire more than just, oh, this is an interesting find
Yeah,
for, our nation or whatever, but even going deeper into maybe a conviction from the spirit
sure.
telling
It's
you,
to me, it's a testament, a testimony of truth. Um, I look back at Joseph Smith when he was looking for truth. You know, the Lord Himself gave him that truth, right?
yeah. Well, almost the same way as like even Brigham Young coming to the promised land and saying this is the place because the spirit is telling him that. You're
Yeah,
feeling that same, you guys are feeling that same conviction about this artifact, you
Yeah.
know, do something with it,
exactly.
something
And
moving.
that's why, I get really emotional about it because it's here we are with these. I'm Native, and our Native people struggled and went through a lot, and they did it because their teachings are that this land is sacred. This land, North America, is sacred, and it was a gift given to us. This sacred land given to us by Great Spirit, our Creator. And when it was given to us, we were almost like made a covenant with Him that we would take care of her, Mother Earth, and that we would live in peace, which not always doesn't happen, but that it was special and that we treat her. We've known this in every fiber of our being as Natives. We know this land is a sacred land. We know it's a promised land. We may not call it promised land, but we do call it sacred land. And what happened when the discovery of this country was made, and things happen, of course. But this ship, it kind of like says, this is the story. This is where your people, and there are stories where our people came. Some in Mike's tribe talks about turtles that brought them to America. Turtles like boats
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I
ships.
remember that story.
Yeah.
Actually, I do remember that. Yes.
And our people the same way. I mean, there's stories that there were two brothers that came here to this land from the east with their family, and that their two brothers disagreed, and one went this way and one went the other way. Okay, what story is that you find? Where is that found? It's in the Book
Right.
of Mormon. So the ship, they call it in Navajo, we call it Sinae, meaning Sinae is Navajo word for wood that floats.
Wow.
Wood that floats. Why in the world do we know that word boat? Sinae, wood that floats. This ship is a wooden ship that floated and came to America.
Yeah.
That's why I have me personally, and Mike can't speak for him, but I speak for myself, that this is a testament of the truth, and that I don't know, I can't talk because I get really emotional. Sorry, but
Oh, it's fine. I
um
understand.
that I grew up with, and that we believe that we came from the east, just like this ship did.
Yeah.
Well, I don't mean to get sidetracked, but don't they also call some of the natives I've heard call the white man younger brother,
Older brother.
older brother? Okay.
Older brother.
I think there was a thread that said younger brother too. Maybe
It,
I don't
it,
know. Meaning
it,
like Nephi was the younger brother.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, there are now Indian nations that do refer to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also refer to Christ as an older brother.
Yes. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. And it's interesting. When the Book of Mormon was written, one of the main naysayers of the book was, Joseph Smith wrote this book. He's talking about his family that came out of Jerusalem at 600 BC. Nobody sailed the oceans at 600 BC. Columbus discovered America in 1492. You're talking 1600 years before Columbus. No, that did not happen. That did not happen. Right. And here you have a 600 BC replica that has sailed 30,000 nautical miles, sailed across the Atlantic Ocean into Miami, could have very easily turned around and went back and forth many times. It was built well. It was built after the 600 BC technology that they found in the mud in Marseille, France. Mm-hmm. So that's another testament of, and proves the veracity of the Book of Mormon happened. The containers and the ship ended up in Montrose. This is where our warehouse is, the Phoenicia rehabilitation warehouse, is where we restore the Phoenicia. And this is in Montrose, Iowa.
Across from Nauvoo, in the place where we call Zarahemla.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
And the reason why we call it, and it's known within the Heartland as Zarahemla, is because of Doctrine and Covenants
125:3,
where it says Joseph is.
The Lord told Joseph, build me up a city across from Nauvoo and call it Zarahemla. Put the name of Zarahemla on it. So that's the thinking of it. It's across this Sidon River, which runs north and south, of course. Not that the Sidon is in the Book of Mormon. And it's interesting how these words show up in the Book of Mormon when they meet with the Mulekites, because Sidon is a Phoenician word.
Is it really?
Yes.
Interesting. Very interesting.
It means many fish. There's, we could talk a lot about a lot of different familiarities with the people that we have met from the ship. Names that we have as LDS, that we know as LDS people in the Book of Mormon, that are familiar to the people in Tunisia and the Phoenician world. It's just amazing. We won't go there right now because we have to show you more pictures.
So the ship is this is the warehouse it's in. We laid the pieces out. They were all numbered, but we still had to figure out how to put everything back together. So that's them laid out in the warehouse. And then of course you can see we have it going together, people putting things together.
We had volunteers come, and we've had some very beautiful people show up to help. People in the local area, and then people that have traveled many miles from many states.
California, Idaho, Arizona.
And we're talking people that know how to do woodwork and metal.
They're volunteers. They're volunteers. They just want to come. They want to see the ship. They know the story. They want to be involved some way. And they come away just really touched by Phoenicia and how, and the story behind her. And we've come to know a lot of people, and people are welcome to come and visit or work if they'd like to.
We've just figured it out as we've gone along. We've thought about bringing people over here who originally built the ship to help put it back together. But then the thought is, well, they know how to build a ship from scratch. We've cut it up. It's been cut up. They're not going to know how to put it back together. Had thoughts of bringing in the Amish because they're pretty good with woodworking, helping us out there. But basically, it's just, Mike Stallman, myself, Blaze Calisante, the Bloom brothers,
Roger Katie
Cooks, the Coxes, the Allens. Too many people to name. They'll come and work on the ship, and we'll be doing something. And because I don't know how to do everything, and we'll be talking about it, and they'll say, "Hey, we can do this or we can do that."
It's called a spiritual download. It really is, because we are following the Spirit's guidance through this whole project from the beginning to where we're at now.
So I don't. That's I love it. I don't know. So everybody just cooperated, didn't they? And nobody
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like, "No, don't do that. You got to do this."
No,
or
no.
There wasn't
There,
egos or anything like that.
no.
That's
There
good.
was, you hear of the too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
Right.
It was nothing like that at all.
Okay. So
No.
let me ask you something. I know you're probably going to get to this about what was the biggest takeaway of getting this? Was it something, and it's something to do with, uh, isn't it something to do with the Jaredites?
The Nephites. The
I mean,
Nephites.
sorry, I keep saying the Jaredites. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Nephites and Lamanites and the Mulekites. This is more the Mulekites. The Mulekites settled Zarahemla.
Right.
And here we are in what we believe is Zarahemla. And the Mulekites would have sailed over just like they did, just like Philip Bill did, came around. The currents take them up on the lower part of Cuba, which brings them into the Gulf of Mexico. And if we're from Florida, so whenever we see hurricanes coming, they're coming from Africa. They come right across, just like everything, like a bowling ball, right out of Africa through Cuba. And then they like a bowling ball, they start hooking up right into New Orleans and right up into Texas. That's where all the hurricanes hit. So we believe that's the route he came. The Mulekites would have came, and they would have sailed right up the Mississippi River. And when they got up to Montrose is the area where you have it's called the Des Moines Rapids. That's where you just can't go any further than that, because the rapids, prevent you from coming. Robert E. Lee spent 1.5 years there during the Civil War. That's why the county that we're in is Lee County, named after Robert E. Lee, who brought up his men and tried to dynamite away so he can get ships up north during the Civil War.
And it's interesting that some of the reading that I've done and some of the things that you guys have already said about the Native
Mulekites?
American, well, no, even the Native American people, depending on what tribe you're talking about, having a desire to know about their heritage, where they came from. And they knew deep down in their soul, that they came from the East, like you said, or that these waters, these oceans, maybe they look at, this is where our people come from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost like the spirit of Elijah. No, not just almost like, that is the spirit of Elijah.
Yeah. If you ask natives, do you think our ancestors came across the Bering Strait, across frozen ice?
No,
they don't think that,
no.
So,
And what's really cool, and I'll just tell this really fast. When my mom she lived on the reservation, no education, no English, she came and visited. My sister brought her here to visit in Florida, and her desire was to go to the ocean. She wanted to be there during the sunrise. She wanted to have a ceremony kind of herself there. So she said, take me there. So we took her there, and she said, I'm going to tell you why I come here. She says, because we call this the east direction, the waters of the holy waters. These are the holy waters, because when Great Spirit, our Creator, when he comes again, and when he came, he left in this direction, and he came in this direction.
Wow.
So these are the holy waters, because it was the path where he came and where he will come again. So the east is important too, I can't emphasize that enough.
Wow.
So
Just
yeah.
like we believe today that the Savior is going to come from the east.
And
Mhm.
where are the temples facing?
Yeah, and Moroni is facing east.
Yeah.
And
So-
most natives, when they build their cheekies or hogans
Hogans.
or wigwams or teepees,
Their traditional homes, their ceremonial homes, they all face the east.
the door.
The doors face the east.
Well, I mean, some of the okay, so I'm not going to bring up somebody that's been making the rounds, but I'll just say this. Some of the things that he says, he's getting it from other sources, but it's true. I mean, there's a lot of uh types and shadows, right? That
Sure.
things we do in the temple that Native Americans have been doing for centuries, that maybe come from the true church that was here during the time of the Book of Mormon.
Sure.
And yeah, I believe that, but they don't have the fullness of it.
Right.
They've
No,
lost it. Yeah. The
it's just
full-
like the Catholic Church or anything
Right.
else. Right.
They've had the fullness, but they have forgotten it,
Yeah.
or they have let it go and they have changed things here and
Yeah.
there. But what's really special about that, the storyline with the different Native nations, is they have a little truth of everything. And when they hear their story in the Book of Mormon, it comes back. It
Well,
comes
isn't
back.
isn't there a lot of Book of Mormon stories that resemble some of the tribal legends that they tell about, selling the ocean or the fights between
Bearing your
brothers?
weapons.
Yeah,
What's
burying
that?
the weapons of war.
Yeah.
with the Iroquois, the Six Nations. They buried their weapons of war. That's in their story, under the peace tree, and they made peace amongst those Six Nations, and they buried their weapons of war. Where is that story? That's in the Book of Mormon.
Wow.
So it's so awesome that when a native hears these stories, and it's a story of them and their people. And I love all people from every facet of humanity. The Meso people are, they have their own culture, but their stories, I don't know, have done enough research to say this, but personally, I believe our stories are more familiar with the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Even with I was on the set of the Book of Mormon videos 2 times, and one of the stories talks about King Lamoni. And he asked Ammon, "Are you the Great Spirit?" Okay. Who else knows the Great Spirit as the Great Spirit?
The native
The
people.
native people.
Right.
Yeah.
The people down in South America, in Central America, they don't say Great Spirit. I've not heard them say Great
No.
Spirit.
No.
We also use a lunar calendar. The native.
I was just going to say that.
We
Well,
use a
you're the
lunar
one that
calendar,
gave
not,
me a lot of information too for my video.
not the sun calendar, And it's interesting talking about the different traditions of natives. The Hopi, they have their kivas, and they perform marriages in their kivas.
And that is eternal
So that's
marriage.
like the temple. Yeah.
Yeah, that's their eternal marriage.
And they do eternal marriage in their kivas. They don't believe it's just here on earth.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
there's a lot to say about the stories in the Book of Mormon that are
Yeah.
familiar with the people of North America, the native people here. And that's a testimony building for a lot of us. And that's when they are they come on board, they become members of the church. They go to the temples and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they do let some of their traditions go, because when you're being taught and you fully believe and the Spirit touches you, you're willing to change. You're willing to change your way of life. People are willing to stop smoking, stop drinking, and stop whatever they're doing, to come unto Christ and to believe. And that's kind of the same thing with the Native people. They do that too. They let their ceremonies go, and then they become fully engaged in, with the church and the belief of Christianity and accepting Jesus Christ in their lives.
So here's a current. This is the ship currently. You see the horse head up top there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's coming together really well. She's 65 feet long. She's about 18 feet wide. The mast is around 60 feet tall. She's a 30-ton vessel. So this is something that Lehi or the Mulek families could have easily come to America and brought all of their provisions, you know. Back in the day, if you remember the Kon-Tiki, that was a big thing in the church, and the church really invested a lot of their
research.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah, their ambition, and here's proof, you know, that this happened, and nothing has done anything close to what the Phoenicia has done. She has sailed 30,000 nautical miles. She's still together. She's a
living vessel.
She's a living vessel.
And a living testimony
that this thing could have happened and did happen. And here is evidence. This is evidence that it has happened, you know. So that's the important thing about the Phoenicia. It proves the veracity of the Book of Mormon. Nothing else has in our history in the past has done that. So that's what's important about this ship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just preposterous to me to think that we only think that people sailed over here less than 400 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Really? But
yeah,
that's just dumb, you know.
If you want to learn about those two voyages, there is Philip has written 2 books about both of the sailings.
The first one, Sailing Close to the Wind, was sailing around Africa. And then the second book is Atlantic BC, which is the voyage from the
Mediterranean Sea to Florida.
Yeah, over here.
Florida. And if you're interested in getting those books, you can log on to Phoenicia.rocks and find it there in
do we have it there?
Yes, it's
well, we'll give you the thing for Phil.
Yeah, so we'll have the links, and I can even put the link right here.
Yeah.
Through the whole video, I can have your links up here too as well.
Yeah. Now something Betty,
do you guys have like a QR code where people can
we have that too, yes.
Okay.
We can send you all that.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Now we've mentioned the Mesos, which basically it's people who believe that Guatemala is the promised land, which is kind of unusual because it looks like our southern border is getting infiltrated by Guatemalans who are leaving the promised land to come to this unpromised land. But nevertheless, Scripture Central did a video on ancient sea travels. So I'm giving them a plug because they talk about Philip Bill. Philip Bill has a really good episode in there about the Phoenicians sailing the ocean.
Around 600 BC, a family supposedly left Jerusalem on a long journey and eventually made it to the Americas. But was there shipbuilding of that kind in 600 BC, the kind where you could put a ship together and take it clear across an ocean?
Yeah, absolutely. So archaeologists have found ships from that period. In fact, they've found very important ships even before that date, going right back to like 1300 BC. My ship, the Phoenicia, was based on a wreck from 600 BC. So there absolutely were ships in that period of time in 600 BC.
Can I ask you something, Betty?
Sure.
Were you raised in the church or are you a convert?
I was baptized at age 10. And that
Okay,
was
so it's always been part of your life.
pretty much, yes. But I saw my mom and dad. My dad wasn't so much active member, but my mom was pretty active. She was baptized actually by LeGrand Richards
Oh, wow.
when
How did they
on one
feel
of his
about,
tours to the reservation with President Kimball.
well, I was just going to
I can't
ask,
remember.
President Kimball was a very huge supporter of the native people.
Oh yeah, oh
Okay.
yeah. Him actually, and
George P. Lee.
George P. Lee. George P. Lee. I met him too. He's a
Yeah.
great guy. He was a
Well, he died recently, didn't he?
yeah. It was amazing when he was called to be a general authority. The people, the native people, just became so proud. I mean, it was just like an
It's
honor.
just sad why, I don't
Yeah.
know. There's a lot of, nobody really knows the big reason why, but he even said himself, he goes, I know the gospel's true. I just have a hard time living it. That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
like us all.
But he was a good guy. I saw meekness in his face. I remember seeing, not to get on a sidetrack, just real quick. I remember when I was young looking, because my parents weren't active, and I would go to get rides to church, and just looking through the ensign and seeing him and reading a story about him being a Native American, and I don't know, I just felt like I don't know, just this meek looking man. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, he had struggles, and Satan's always working. His
Of course.
job is to destroy the heart and spirit of the people,
That's right.
and he does a good job.
Yep.
And so George P. Lee just fell. When he fell hard, and the
Yeah.
adversary got to his heart. But you know what? I had a dream that was an amazing dream about him, that he was with the Lord, and that he was repenting. He had a repentant heart, and
I believe that.
the Lord was guiding him as to help the people that are in the spirit world right now. His people,
Amen.
our people.
That
So
was,
we all make mistakes. The Lord guides us, and the Spirit helps us to come back into the gift of repentance. That's what the Savior did for us. He was crucified. He sacrificed himself so that we could have repentance and forgiveness, and that he shows mercy on us, and things will work out always. And it's just, we have to have a repentant heart, and we have to humble ourselves to come to him and seek forgiveness, and he'll forgive
Yeah.
us.
that's true. Sorry, brother. I'm sidetracking so much.
So am I. I was looking for that guy's name and I can't find it.
Before we end, I do want to say something about the future of the ship, the Phoenicia. We hope that we can put her in a museum and build a museum to house her, so that everyone can come and visit her. But we need help. We need help to get that done. And if you're willing to help us in any way, we really would appreciate that, because her story needs to go on.
Yeah.
Her story needs to go on. And like I've said before, it's a familiar story to two groups of people.
Yeah.
And those two groups of people are very important to the future of this promised land. The Native people, and the story behind the story of the Book of Mormon.
Amen.
So if you feel inclined, or you're touched by the spirit of Phoenicia, we welcome you to help us to further the work and put her in a museum.
There is a program you could sign up for, which is you just donate $10 a month or $20 a month. That's a big help. That keeps our doors open and keeps the lights
Okay.
on. You know, you want to volunteer, you can also contact us. And we generally have a place for you to live, and we generally feed you. Betty usually cooks a big, nice lunch, and it's turned out really well. We have people visiting and coming to volunteer from all over the country. We're averaging probably around 1,000 hours, 1,200 hours of volunteer service a year. So it's been really neat.
That is awesome.
And we thank all those who have visited the Phoenicia, and also the volunteers who have put many hours in and their own time and their own money to come and stay with us and help support the Phoenicia. We want to thank them, and we want to invite you to come and see. If you're in Nauvoo area, come and visit us. We're right across the river in Montrose, Iowa.
Yeah, you walk out our warehouse and you look due east, and you're looking right at the Nauvoo Temple across the riverside on.
Well, I've got something to tell you about that. So I might be there this coming year in 2025. I've got somebody that's going to be funding me, probably going to Kirtland, Nauvoo, Palmyra, doing on location stuff.
That'll be awesome.
So I'm looking forward to it, guys. Is that it? Is that it? Are we done?
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. I want you to come back so we can have conversations about other things as well.
Yeah.
Please.
Betty wants to close out with a flute song that was written on.
Babe.
You see how excited he is about this?
I am.
Everybody loves to hear Betty play the flute. So this, you want to get your wife to come in? She coming?
She's gonna play the flute at the end right here.
Cool.
Okay.
Hi.
I am, dear. You think I want to start?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's okay. Hi.
Let me introduce this. So this is a Native American flute. This particular piece I wrote is called Phoenicia, which just came to me as I saw a photo of the ship with the sun behind, like either rising or going down. It's really cool.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Do you have those songs? Can we find those on YouTube?
No.
No.
No, I haven't put anything out there yet.
Okay.
I'm still working on it, but
we got a good friend.
Go ahead.
We got a good friend, Dan Whitley in Utah. He's bugging her. You've got to get something out there for people to get, maybe not a CD, but just, I don't know what they use these days, podcasts or not podcasts, but
well, you don't have to record
digital
this part, but the story behind me actually learning to play the flute is amazing, because I got COVID in 2020 and I was in the hospital for 5 weeks. I nearly lost my life to COVID.
Me too.
Really?
I was probably in the same time you were. I was on oxygen and I was in the hospital.
Isn't that crazy how you're just
that was scary.
It was scary. I mean, It literally was scary. Mike wanted me to get out of that hospital.
I was going to get her. She wasn't she was improving okay, but I knew that staying there was a death sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anyway, my friend Irene in Nauvoo, I taught her how to play a little bit of the flute. So she got a flute and she called Mike. She says, get those flutes to her right now. And so the nurses brought me the flutes and I started playing on that flute and my lungs were improving a little bit at a time, every time I start playing a flute. And then when I would play, there was this lady I was in the ICU area. So I was hooked up and everything. I could hardly breathe. It was scary. It was scary.
Yeah.
And there's a story behind that also, but I won't go into that.
We'll do it next
Anyway,
time.
Lady had Alzheimer's. She was like 93 years old. And I could hear her call out, mommy, mommy. And I would just it would just get me right here. I'm an emotional person. So I'd get my flute out and I'd start playing it and she could hear me. And every time I'd play my flute, she would calm down and not, yell at anymore. And the nurses before long, they were knocking on my door. Miss Betty, start playing that flute, please, to help calm the lady, the 93-year-old lady. So yeah. So these flutes have done a lot for me. And so I'm trying to learn more because it's not customary for a Native woman to be playing a flute. It's a man thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The men play the flute because they're trying to attract a female.
Kind of like a peacock thing.
It's like the birds, when the birds, it's the male that are the beautiful ones.
Yeah.
Right.
And
you know that.
Yeah.
Troy, introduce your wife.
This is Andrea.
Hi, Andrea.
Yeah.
Hi, Andrea.
Can almost see you.
Almost. Am I down here?
There we go.
We can see you now.
Good to meet you.
Oh, it's nice to meet you too.
You got a good guy there. He's very entertaining. He's very talented.
We like him.
I don't know for sure. And I know you probably have a lot of people go, I'm Cherokee Indian. Yeah. And you're like, whatever. All the white people say they're Cherokee, right? But I actually have ancestors. I promise. They come from, have you ever heard of Ware Shoals, North Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of the Cherokee people there. That's where the Bradleys are from my side of the family.
Yeah.
And my grandfather, and they even say that my fingernails look like Native Americans. Like they don't look like European. But anyway, to make a long story short, my grandmother had a picture of my grandfather, and they were listed as mulattoes in the census. So I don't know.
How about that?
It could be Native American, probably.
Sure. In that area on the East Coast like that, the natives mixed in with a lot of the whites, a lot of mixing there. So yeah, definitely. We need to do a what is it called?
DNA?
The 23andMe or whatever.
No, it's the other. It's the one the church has.
Oh,
Ancestry?
Right. Yeah.
Family tree, relatives around me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really neat. It's like, why are they mulattoes? Who
Yeah.
knows? But that meant you were half whatever
White,
and half white.
whatever.
Half breed.
Yeah.
And that's what I am. I'm Métis. Métis is half breed.
Okay.
And then the land that we bought over there
I was just going to say that.
in Zarahemla, that was all the half breed tract. Lee County was the half breed tract because during the time they were sending natives to Oklahoma or wherever to reservations, you had a bunch of half breed. They said, you can't send me to reservation. I'm not a native. My mom is white.
Right.
So they set that whole area apart and gave each family 15 acres. And that's where Joseph Smith.
Is that where all the half breeds came from? Is
Yeah.
that why they all look? You're like, you guys aren't Native American. Why are you saying you are?
Yeah, they're half breeds.
Yeah.
So Joseph Smith bought a lot of the land over there from the from natives, as well as other people who had bought land from the natives.
That's neat. That's really neat.
Have you done any research on Joseph Smith's relationship with the Native people?
No.
He had relationships.
I would love to. You know what?
Relationship.
Would you come on?
Love
Do you know a lot
commitment.
about that?
I don't know a lot, but I do know of some stories
Yeah.
that are very encouraging. That
Maybe I can do some research and then you guys could come on and talk about it a little
That
bit.
would be cool. That would really
yeah,
be cool.
Yeah.
I love the stories of them. Of
You guys should even make that maybe part of your shtick. Like research some of that, maybe write a book about it. You know, that would be something you guys could really run with.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see it. We got to get going. Love you guys
Good
so
to meet
much.
you. Love you guys. We'll talk
Yes.
soon.
All right. I'll get this edited. Give me a couple days because we got a lot of material here.
Yeah, no, I got to send you these pictures too. So,
Yep.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you for the opportunity,
All right.
and God
Thank
bless.
you. Okay. Bye-bye.